Lesson 1-1, Expressions and Formulas. We begin by discussing the order of operations, which most of us know as PEMDAS. P parentheses, E exponents, M multiply, D divide, A add, S subtract. And again, most people think that we have 6 steps in the order of operations, but really there are only 4 steps in the order. First step is P for parentheses, but really overall that is called, or also known as, the grouping symbols, which include the parentheses, brackets, braces, and fraction marks. Step 2 would be E for exponents, also known as powers. Step 3 would include multiplication and division in order from left to right. So in some instances, it may be that you have to divide before you multiply. And number 4, last step, addition and subtraction in the same step in order from left to right. And again, sometimes you may have to subtract before you add. Let's begin our first example. We work the innermost set of parentheses first. Of course, we're dealing with all parentheses first, but starting with the innermost set of parentheses, we would begin with 384 minus 3 times 5 to the third power, and then divided by 3. Because that divided by 3 is the only thing outside of the original big set of parentheses, that's actually going to be our last step. Then go on to the exponents inside the parentheses. 384 minus 3 times 125 divided by 3. Next, again, working inside the original parentheses, we would do the multiplication. 384 minus 375 divided by 3. 384 minus 375 would be 9. And since that's the last operation inside that original grouping symbol, we can drop that grouping symbol. And our final step would be 9 divided by 3, for a final answer of 3. The second example is very similar. We are just expected to make the substitutions ourselves. Evaluate S minus T times the quantity S squared minus T, if S is 2 and T is 3.4. So begin by writing your problem out. And again, applying the order of operations, working first with the parentheses. Apply the order of operations to the parentheses, which means we need to do the exponents inside the parentheses first. Finish up your parentheses. And now, our decision is, should we subtract or should we multiply? Multiply comes before subtracting in the order of operations. And lastly, subtract. 2 minus 2.04 is negative 0.04. Our third example is very similar to our second example. We need to make our substitutions. We begin by writing 8 times 5 times negative 2 plus negative 1 to the third power divided by negative 2 to the second power plus 5. Now you'll notice that I use parentheses to show my multiplication here. These parentheses do not mean that they need to be done as the very first step in the order of operations. They're again showing multiplication. Remember also, in the order of operations, the very first step is parentheses, but again, these parentheses don't mean parentheses, but there are parentheses implied. Parentheses are considered to be the fraction bar. So basically what they're saying is that we treat the top of the numerator as if it has parentheses around it, and the same thing on the denominator. We treat it as if it has parentheses around it. So technically we should work the top, work the numerator, get a number, and work the denominator, get a number, and then see if we can divide. Let's do that. Applying the order of operations to the numerator. parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. We would first work with the exponents on the negative 1. So that's going to be 8 times 5 times negative 2 plus negative 1 to the third power is negative 1. And we recopy in the bottom. Okay, continue working on that top, which would be multiplying next. Multiply comes before adding that negative 1. So let's do all of the multiplication in order there from left to right. 8 times 5 times negative 2. 8 times 5 times negative 2 is negative 80. And we'll finish up that numerator with the addition. Negative 80 plus 1 is negative 81. Let's also begin right now in working the denominator. So applying the order of operations to the denominator, negative 2 squared is going to be positive 4. Please don't use your calculator for that. Be smarter than your calculator. A negative times a negative is a positive. And finishing up the denominator, positive 4 plus positive 5 would be positive 9. For a final answer of negative 81 divided by positive 9 is negative 9.